But it's not a money. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the June Shotsuki service here at Higashi Honganji. Hopefully all of you are enjoying a wonderful weekend. As I say pretty much all the time, the weather is wonderful today, and I think it should be a really nice day, so hopefully you're enjoying the Sunday morning here. So as this is our Shotsuki service, I would like to ask Reverend Hasegawa to read the names of the Shotsuki people that we are honoring today.
Good morning. So I'd like to read the name of our loved one who passed away in the month of June. Enoki Chiei様、福田正信様、二素直トム様、長谷川智之様、長谷川銀次郎様、橋口久子様、服部和友様、林田岩吉様、林田勝子様、林田千吉様、広島ケネス岩尾様、茨城アルバート敏夫様、一ノ瀬健一様、池田小石様、妹メリー美恵子様、This is her first year memorial。妹雅子ジェイン様、This is her third memorial。伊佐アルバート重義様、伊佐バニースよし子様、加賀康弘様、角田美智子様、 金子玲和夫様、金本和夫様、紀藤和子様、清原文子様、小山正育ボブ様、熊本デニス勝則様、国沢虎夫様、前原吉之助様、松本和夫様、本山春様、新井雅子様、This is her first year memorial. 西田武雄凛様、越智健作様、岡野メリー様、奥山隆子様、坂口誠作様、酒井一郎ローソン様、井一郎様、I'm sorry、酒井井一郎ローソン様、坂田康代様、崎岡メリー清子様、崎岡ジャニー勝井様、崎岡勝則様、竹本明美キャサリン様、竹本幸吉様、竹本彩様、寺岡佐助様、This is his 7th year memorial. 上杉正史様、上杉春吉様、This is his 33rd year memorial. 山田富夫様、山本藤正様、山本武雄様、山本徳次様、吉上美恵子様。That's all for this month's Shotsuki name list. So if there is a mistake or misname, please let our temple staff know. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Reverend Hasegawa. Next, we are going to have the singing of the Gatha, Namu Amida Butsu. If you have a service book, it's on page 121. And following the singing of the Gatha, we will go right into the Vandana Tisarana and Three Treasures on page 17 and 18.
Difficult is it to hear the Buddha Dharma? Now we hear. If we do not receive awakening in the present life, then in what life can we hope to receive it? Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we together as one begin on the great path of enlightenment, holding our hearts the stream of the ocean. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we together as one enter the storehouse of the Dharma, and into wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we together as one, uniting in harmony, strive to live for the enlightenment of all beings. The incomparable, deep, and profound Dharma is difficult to encounter even through countless ages of cultures. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us endeavor to thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Buddha Dharma. Namo.
Thank you. Now we will have the chanting of the Shoshinge, which, if you have a service book, is on page 20.
出頭せ真の財派受け先生大丈夫情報召喚二次小安楽賢治南行六六新行異行指導楽億年未ラブ本願理念即時流陸上類の上昇如来語大悲偶米を天神菩薩道論世奇妙無下公如来永州たら献身寺光線王朝大天がこういう本願力栄光異道群上昇一子非入空毒大崩壊実逆入大永州中特使連芸造世界即昇信用発祥し有言の人間人数入生寺四寺用芸本寺論壇両天使上皇乱消防さらい三蔵ルチ十条教恩賞宣教喜楽法天神菩薩論中芸報道因が天聖が法言栄光ゆたり少女子唯信心漠然本部新人法承知承知即名藩一子無料公平等小宇宙回復系両者結晶道南省有料浄土活入安全自力援軍衆円満特合感染症三風三神軽音音増魔法明道義一生増悪地偶税一安養大小量化
天道六名仏生非
大愛上三両脈悪光明明後権年介入本願大地会行者小樹今後し行儀一年総合用意大東脈三人即所発祥市上楽原神公開一大教天理安女官立祭先導終身安全期法家二道小円流60悪人唯勝負化薬剤費摂取中煩悩証言水風見大非無見上昇が本次元空明仏教連民全幕本部に新宗教商工編集戦略本願具悪性天来生寺臨伝芸決地二条異小子即入弱上無意楽一致新人異能に仏教大事終始と上西無変独辱悪道徳自主愚老心唯化心し たむらぬものぞなき何しによ起業せよ少女巧妙ならびなしくしこゆえなれば一切のごけもの残りぬ一挙へお起業せよ仏法商用最大一公園の仏と名付けたり三途の国安開くなり大用具を起業せよ安寧宿毒陽動聖祭東菩提心往生安楽
Okay, thank you. So, next it's time for Children's Dharma story time. And guess who's doing it? Me. So, anyways, as some of you know, a prominent author, Eric Carle, passed away about a little over a week ago. And if you don't know the name Eric Carle, I'm sure you know the book, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And I just want to read you a little bit of what was written about him in the New York Times. It says, "The Very Hungry Caterpillar, Mr. Carle's best-known book, has sold more than 55 million copies around the world since it was first published in 1969. It's mere 224 words translated into more than 70 languages. It is one of more than 70 books that Mr. Carle published over his career, selling more than 170 million copies." Now, I'm sure most of you have probably read that book and maybe read some of his other books. But what I wanted to share with you today was not that book, but this book. It's called The Mixed Up Chameleon. So, here it is. The story I chose today is The Mixed Up Chameleon by Eric Carle. On a shiny green leaf sat a small green chameleon. It moved onto a brown tree and turned brownish. Then it rested on a red flower and turned reddish. When the chameleon moved slowly across the yellow sand, it turned yellowish. You could hardly see it. When the chameleon was warm and had something to eat, it turned sparkling green. When it was cold and hungry, it turned gray and dull. When the chameleon was hungry, it sat still and waited. Only its eyes moved up, down, sideways, until it spotted a fly. Then the chameleon's long and sticky tongue shot out and caught the fly. That was its life. It was not very exciting. But one day, the chameleon saw a zoo. It had never seen so many beautiful animals. See all the different animals? The chameleon thought, "How small I am, how slow, how weak. I wish I could be big and white like a polar bear." And the chameleon's wish came true. See how big it became? But was it happy? No. I wish I could be handsome like a flamingo. I wish I could be smart like a fox. See the fox's tail? I wish I could swim like a fish. I wish I could run like a deer. He's got these antlers now. I wish I could see things far away like a giraffe. So that's this long neck. I wish I could hide in a shell like a turtle. See that shell? I wish I could be strong like an elephant. I wish I could be funny like a seal. I wish I could be like people. Just then, a fly flew by. The chameleon was very hungry, but the chameleon was very mixed up. It was a little of this, and it was a little of that, and it couldn't catch the fly. I wish I could be myself. The chameleon's wish came true, and it caught the fly. That's the end of the story. Well, I hope you enjoyed the story. Very simple, but also very powerful in a way. Basically, I think the message is that all of us should just be ourselves. Just be yourself. Enjoy your uniqueness. We're all unique. We're all a little bit different. And so, I'm very different. And so just enjoy your uniqueness and be yourself. So that's it. Thank you. All right, next. We will have our Dharma talk. Our English Dharma talk by Rinban Ito.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our June Shotsuki Memorial Service. This past Monday was Memorial Day, and I had the opportunity of joining other ministers and also members of the Los Angeles Buddhist Temple Federation temples at Evergreen Cemetery to honor those, especially those who lost their lives in the wars that our country has been involved in. Because we're still living with COVID-19 pandemic, the veterans gatherings were basically canceled this year, and went virtual. But it was somewhat surprising to me that there were a good number of people there representing their temples and also their families as well. Just before that, on Friday, the week before, I was in Gilroy with most of my family to observe the one-year memorial service for Janet's father, Lawson Sakai, who passed away last year on June 16th at the age of 96. The ashes of he and Janet's mother are interred at a niche at the cemetery in Gilroy, California, which is about maybe 40 minutes south of San Jose. And it's where Janet grew up and where her mother, her aunts and uncles and grandparents lived where Janet's parents lived pretty much during all of their married life. And so it was nice to hold the service there last weekend, just before Memorial Day, because it was not only to observe the Buddhist tradition of memorial services, but also Memorial Day weekend to honor his service as a soldier of the 442nd Regimental Combat Battalion in Europe during World War II. And then 2 days ago on Friday, we were invited to an event at JANM, at the Japanese American National Museum, for the unveiling and dedication of the Go for Broke, or Japanese American Soldiers commemorative stamp. The forever stamp with the photo of one of the Nisei soldiers was unveiled and started to be sold in Los Angeles on Saturday as the first city of issuance. The campaign to get the U.S. Postal Service to issue such a stamp was started by 5 Nisei women back 15 years ago. And they were joined by a Sansei Yonsei young man named Wayne Osako. Wayne and his father were active at our temple. Mr. Osako came to our Shotsuki services at least a few times every year, even though he lived way out in Orange County. And Wayne was also active in our senior YBA. And he was one of the early members of the youth educational tour that occurs every couple of years. And that's how I got to know him well. At any rate, 2 of the ladies, Fusa Takahashi and the late Chiz Ohira, were widows of Go for Broke veterans. And the other woman, Aiko King, was very involved in the veterans' activities and so forth, and was a good friend of many veterans and family members. It was really a labor of love because they kept getting rejected, but little by little gaining some traction, and being helped by JANM and Go for Broke, and eventually people like the late Senator Daniel Inoue. It took them 15 years, but they finally succeeded in getting the USPS, the U.S. Postal Service, to release that stamp. And it was a really great program with Channel 7 anchor David Ono as MC, and with performances by Jun Kuramoto and Kimo Cornwell of Hiroshima, and the speakers were all very excellent as well. And one of the most moving part of the event was the reading of a couple of letters, both from soldiers to their families when they were, serving in Europe, and vice versa. The majority of those families of the 442nd soldiers were in the concentration camps like Manzanar and Heart Mountain. And there was one letter written by a soldier to his mother. He said that he hoped his parents and family members are doing well and staying healthy in the camp. And then he talked about how things are with him, in a foxhole writing the letter and saying to his mom, "I'm doing fine, and so you don't have to worry about me." And then he said, "I plan to go home after we're finished here, but if I were to die in the war and then cannot make it back home, it'll be good for you as my mom because you will receive $80 a month for the rest of your life from the government." If I remember correctly, he did die in combat. Some 20,000 soldiers were in the army, and some, I think I read somewhere, some 800 of them died in the war. And one of the heroic acts that the 442nd is credited with is saving the lost battalion of soldiers from Texas. And I had heard about that story from Lawson and Janet, And at the event on Friday, family members of a soldier who was rescued were there from Texas, and one of them spoke. And Lawson, he and my mother-in-law operated a small travel agency in San Jose. And so eventually, they started organizing these tours to Hawaii and then eventually to Europe. And Janet and our children have been able to go. And it's amazing that small towns in France still remember the contributions of the Nisei soldiers. And even now, when they go, every such town has welcome parties for them. And the third generation, the third generation of this, the people who were saved, were told the stories from their grandparents and continue to be grateful for the brave efforts to save them. At the recent May We Gather memorial service that we had here at our temple, there were 6 Dharma messages that were given by various priests. And I was given the opportunity to share my thoughts on the subject of wisdom. The 6 messages were presented on one of the teachings of the 6 paramitas, the 6 what we sometimes translate as perfections or the practices that can lead us to awakening. And the first of the 6, as you probably remember, is the teaching of Dharma. It's the encouragement to share what we have with others. And we share this with our children, but I find I need to be reminded of that as much as anyone else. The tendency is to always think first of ourselves before we think of others. And for years and years after I graduated from college, I would get donation request letters from the college. And back when I was younger, we didn't have a lot of extra money, and so I always kind of rationalized saying I don't have enough of an income to donate to others. Just getting by, having to feed and clothe our kids and so forth, and that the rich people should support the school. But once our children grew up, and especially because our girls both graduated from Occidental, I do donate annually to the fund. And all of you, donate to this temple and probably to other organizations as well. And so you know the feeling, of how good it feels to be able to donate, but at the same time, thinking, I need to save as much money as I can and so forth. And this teaching of Dharma is translated into Japanese as fuse or ofuse. And traditionally, ofuse is money that is donated to a temple or given to a priest for services rendered, like a memorial service. And when you look at that word, fuse, fu means cloth, and se means giving. And so originally it was donations made to the Buddha or to the Sangha for the robes the monks wore. And as mentioned to children, the lay people could not afford to give up all of their possessions like the priests, and so the donations made as ofuse were symbolic of the act of giving up one's possessions or giving up one's wealth. And to give up everything was to practice non-attachment. And so we suffer in life because we're attached to things that become, because of the truth of impermanence, are taken away from us, on a constant basis. We're attached to our youth, our health, to the people that we love, and ultimately attached to our own lives. And we become attached to things that we own, that's mine, you can't have it. We protect everything that we own, pretty much with all our might, installing alarm systems and so forth. And the symbolic way of practicing non-attachment was to live the life of dana, of giving and of sharing. And most of the time, however, we give with strings attached. We get upset when an act of giving is not acknowledged or returned. We find ourselves giving so much that we can gain. We find ourselves trying to give so much so that we can gain the respect of others and so forth. And there's a word in Japanese that's synonymous for ofuse, used long ago, but perhaps not much anymore. And that word is kisha. Ki means with joy, and sha actually means to throw away, to let go of something with joy, to let go of something for the sheer joy of it. Not to give for thanks, for acknowledgement, or for something in return, but to give with joy. And this is what I think the Buddha meant to teach us. No matter how much or how little one has, to refrain from attachment, to realize that being attached to things is really a source of pain and suffering. And by being able to give freely to people and to organizations, it truly helps them as well. And so there's that double benefit, the benefit of the receiver and the benefit of the giver, making others happy while making ourselves happy as well. So, like I often told the children, the teaching of Dharma is not just to make us good people, to make us into people who can serve society, but it is as much to make life happier for ourselves as well. There's this, the Buddha, in the statues that we are able to kind of imagine what the Buddha looked like, often has a hand, right hand held up. And in Japanese, they use the word samui. It means to be afraid. Mu is negative, means something that's not to be afraid. So, samui, the I means to be afraid, but then mu in between is a negative, and so means something that's not to be afraid of, and then se is giving. And so the hand in that position symbolizes the Buddha telling us not to be worried, not to be afraid, not to be sad. On the other hand, when we make that hand motion, we might be telling somebody, well, I tried my best, I'm sorry I couldn't do more, I'm sorry it didn't work out, and things like that. The Buddha, though, is saying, don't worry, everything is going to turn out all right. And no matter what happens, I'll take care of you. My teaching will be your encouragement, not literally, but to provide us with a path on which we can live our lives. The ultimate gift, of course, would be the sacrifice of one's life for the benefit of others. And it's easy enough to talk about that or to think about that, but when it comes time to act, it is so difficult to follow the Buddha's encouragement. What is just as important, though, is to try to reach that level of being able to give with no conditions, no strings attached. It is to realize that we are basically unable to become that ideal person that the Buddha encouraged us to work for. But this is the awakening of Shinran Shonin, to realize that we can never be pure and truly altruistic, that we're always going to think first of ourselves and our family and our friends before we can turn our concern to others. To be able to admit to such faults and shortcomings is the first step that we must take to becoming persons who can truly practice the teaching of Dharma. So when I think about the contributions of the Nisei soldiers, it was the Dana, the ofse of giving up their lives for the sake of their parents, their friends, of their communities, to prove to others that they are not only Japanese Americans, but that they are in fact Americans. The majority of the 442nd soldiers having been born in the U.S., but after Pearl Harbor, identified by even our government as the enemy. And I've been asked to offer invocations at the annual gatherings of the Go for Broke Monument near the Japanese American National Museum. And I know I've mentioned this before, but one year my mentor and friend, Reverend Paul Nagano, who was one of the iconic Christian ministers in our community, gave the benediction. And he was so well known in the Christian community, and he established the Evergreen Baptist Church, which was a neighbor of our Higashi Honganji in Boyle Heights. And I may have shared this with you before, but what I remember him saying on that occasion of that memorial event, after the war was over, from the camps, we were able to return to the neighborhoods that we left behind. But we weren't welcomed back with open arms. We were still considered by many to be the enemy. But when the soldiers of the 442nd returned from Europe as heroes, that's when we as a community were really welcomed back into the places that we lived before the war. So it was my father-in-law and his fellow soldiers who fought in World War II, even though they were not totally accepted as true Americans, who through their bravery and their commitment to show the rest of our country that they and their parents, their families are Americans who have been contributing to this country all along. Fortunately, Lawson Sakai, although wounded many times and having received 3 bronze medals for that and other honors, was able to return to the United States to his family safely. The ultimate gift of Dharma is to give up one's life to help others. But the wish that each one of them had, I believe, is that they would want us to avoid war as much as possible, to be able for their children, their grandchildren, and now great-grandchildren, to be able to live in a world where peace prevails. So many of his friends, his family soldiers, did die. And as I have shared many times since our vandalism incident, it is to be inspired by the words of the larger sutra of the Buddha of immeasurable life, to wish for a world in which soldiers and weapons are no longer necessary, to establish a world in which everyone can live together in peace, a world in which a world in which their great-grandchildren do not have to bear arms and fight in wars in the future. I'm sorry. Through their actions, they contributed greatly towards acceptance of our community, and I'm sure our temples benefited also, since Buddhism was still considered to be a foreign religion back then, over 70 years ago. And through the efforts and the perseverance of the stamp committee, we now have a Nisei soldier, USPS stamp. And through the efforts of Wayne and the ladies who pushed to make it a reality, we find that the Nisei soldiers in World War II are helping us again in this time in which we have been made to feel alienated from the rest of American society. These stories remind us of all that Americans, these stories remind all of us that Americans come in different colors and shapes. And although I did hear that guns are selling at record-breaking quantities, we can at least hope for that world where there is no violence, no war, no need for soldiers, no need for weapons. As you probably heard, Happy Days are here again, and from next Sunday on June 13th, we'll be welcoming you all back for our first service, our first in-person Sunday service. And so for those of you who find it difficult, and for those of you who find it difficult to actually come, we will continue to stream our services as well. So I really look forward to seeing all of you in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Rinban. Wonderful message, and not only on Memorial Day, but we should always say thanks and pay our respects to those who serve and who protect us and allow us to live the way we live. So anyways, thank you. And then we will have a Japanese Dharma talk after the singing of Ondoksan and the announcements. So for those of you who are looking forward to that, stay tuned. So next, we will have the singing of Ondoksan 1, which is on page 112 in the service book. Okay, so I have a few announcements. Rinban already mentioned it, but excuse me one second. Showing my uniqueness. See that? It's the light at the end of the tunnel. So, what that means is we will be having in-person services again next week. So, as the Rinban mentioned, we are going to be welcoming all of you back. But we want to still be safe, because it's not like the pandemic's over and it's not like COVID-19 is totally gone. So this was this is sort of a welcoming message for all of you. So we welcome you as we reopen for services in person on Sunday, 10 a.m. on June 13th. Services will continue to be live streamed, so for those of you who would rather do that, please do so. And do not attend if you are in the COVID vulnerable group, are ill, or have been exposed to COVID-19 in the past 14 days. We strongly encourage you to be fully vaccinated, which means 2 weeks past your 1 dose or your 2-dose vaccines. Please arrive a bit early to allow time for a temperature check, a symptom check, and contact documentation. You must wear a mask and follow physical distancing. Bring your own service book if you have one, and if not, the materials will be provided for you by QR code or on paper. Refrain from singing and chanting for now, and thank you for your consideration, and welcome back. So on June 13th, we hope to see some of you back here in the Hondo at the temple.